I thought I'd come into the accessory shop to talk about, well, accessories. What are the things that you're going to need to actually run the caravan? So quickly, you've got an Aquaroll, you've got a Wastemaster, you've got a battery, and you've got a gas bottle, and then you've got some security products. So without the Aquaroll, you can't get the water into the caravan, and with the Wastemaster, you can't get away from the caravan. Obviously, you're going to need gas to run the cooking and the heating and things like that if you're not plugged in. So let's break these things down. First of all, you've got your Aquaroll. Now they're going to cost from £45 to £50 for an economy one, up to £60 for the older traditional one that they used to produce. The economy one's fine. It's blue, the other one's grey, cream. I think the cream one's got a 10-year guarantee, but really you only need the economy one, unless you don't like blue. What that does is you've got the water container outside, and then you've got either a pump inside or a pickup pipe, and then you've got 40 litres there, and put the pump running on the caravan, and it pumps the water up from that Aquaroll up into the caravan itself. Then you have to get the water away from the caravan, so you have a Wastemaster. Again, you can have an economy one, and they're around about the same price, so 45 up to £55, something like that. And that lays on its side just behind the wheel normally, and there's a couple of outlet points that where the grey water comes out. So grey water, we mean washing up water, shower water, not toilet, that's different. So that then goes into a Wastemaster, and then you take that across to the dump point and get rid of your grey water. So again, about 45 to £55 for that. Then you have the gas bottle. If you haven't got a gas bottle, I think they're about £45 to buy, and I think they're around about £30 to fill up. We recommend propane. Propane's a much cleaner gas. It isn't full of oil so much, so it doesn't bung up all the jets and things. So we recommend propane. It also means if you use propane that you can use it in the winter. Butane, which is the blue, that once you get down to about 4 degrees, it doesn't work as efficiently. So propane goes down to like -30 or something like that. So propane's the way to go. 6 kilogram. They used to do a 6 kilogram light, Cala did, but they've stopped doing that now. So you can only have the normal steel container. If you're going abroad, they don't do Cala. So you're going to have to carry all your gas with you. So just be mindful of how much you use. Because you're going to have to carry all that gas with you. So if you're going away for 2 weeks, you'll be fine. If you're going away for longer periods of time, probably 2 bottles will be okay. Again, it really depends on whether you can plug in or whether it's going to be cold or not, because obviously when it's cold and you're not plugged in, that's when the gas gets used, because your heater's going to use quite a bit. You're going to need a battery. There's a couple of different sizes of battery. If you've got a motor mover, you have to have at least 100 amp hour. There is what's called an EFB battery, extra flooded battery now, where the manufacturers of the motor movers are saying that you should use that. It's a bit more powerful. We've used the normal 100 amp hours for years, not really had any problem. So they're creeping up a little bit. Same with everything at the moment. You'll probably pay about £140 for a 100 amp hour battery. They're the slightly bigger ones you'll see in the shops. I would always go for a low line. Some of the newer battery compartments in the caravans are quite tight. So if you go for the older ones, which are quite high, it's quite hard to get the battery actually into the compartment, especially if you do have a motor mover, because there's extra wires that go to it. So go for a low line one if you can. If you're plugging in most of the time and you haven't got a motor mover, you only really need a 75 amp hour battery. It does the job. Some people think that when they're plugged into the mains, they don't need a battery because the transformer will do that job, but that's not the case. You need a battery, otherwise the transformer thinks that there's no battery there and it runs flat out all the time and eventually packs up. So it's best not to do that. So you need to have that battery in line working. That kind of acts as a sponge. That does the majority of the work, and then the transformer just charges that up when it needs it. Again, I'll go into the maintenance side of things in the other videos of how to look after those batteries and things. So that's the stuff you need essentially to get your van actually running. Aquaroll, Wastemaster, battery and gas bottle. Sometimes you'll go to a site and it will have a super pitch, and you'll be able to have a tap and a dedicated drain point for your waste. Now that's great, because you can then not worry about having your Wastemaster, because there's a pipes, you can run the pipes directly into the waste drain and it will just go away, so you don't have to do that. With the Aquaroll, I'd still say you need that. There are some pieces of kit that you can plug straight onto a tap and then straight into the caravan, I'm not a huge fan of them. I don't think that they reduce the pressure of the water down enough that the caravan's used to. We've had a few issues where the John Guest fittings, they kind of undo or pop off when you turn the taps on and off, and you've got this kind of jolt in the system with the extra pressure. What I recommend is getting another piece of kit, which is a float valve that goes in the side of the Aquaroll that then feeds the water as it's being used. So it's like a cistern in a toilet, where as you draw the water off, it drops down and then puts the extra water coming from the tap into the barrel. So the barrel always stays half full, but it'll always stay there. So I think that's a much better system. Anything bad happens, like the pipe blows off or you forget to turn the water off, it's all outside. There's nothing, you're not going to have mains pressure in the caravan at all, which can cause a bit of a problem. So then we have the security products. You're going to need those if you're insured. If you've been through the insurance process, you would have been probably a bit bamboozled by all the terminology, but there's a hitch lock, there's a wheel clamp, and there's two different types of wheel clamp, which I'll get to in a second. There's a standard one, and then there's a through axle one, which they call it. We'll talk about hitch locks first. So hitch locks, they're very good. They stop anyone attaching the caravan onto the back of a vehicle and then driving off with it. Most of them these days, you can leave the ball out. There's a little ball that goes up to stop people from putting a ball up underneath and just tying it on the back of the car and going off. If you leave that out, when you are actually hitched onto the back of the car, you can attach the hitch lock onto the caravan, so that no one can lift the handle up when it's on the back of the car. Now this is great when you're in a service station and you don't have to do the toilet shuffle. So one of you stays with the car and the caravan to stop people from pinching it in the car park and driving off, which is what they do. So you can lock the caravan onto the back of the car to avoid anyone just coming along, unhitching and disappearing off with it. I don't recommend towing with these on, because if the emergency services need to get your car off the vehicle quickly, the last thing they want to do is try and find some keys. So don't tow with it on, but when you get to a service station, you can click it on. Then when you come back in, obviously take it back off again. Then we have the wheel clamps. Essentially there's two different types. There's one that just covers the wheel to stop people from driving off, because it'll make a bit of a mess and it'll stop the wheel actually turning. Most of them will cover the wheel bolts so that you can't take the wheel off and then replace it with another wheel. There's lightweight ones which, to be completely honest, are really easy to get off. An angle grinder, and literally I think I've got one off in probably 10 seconds before. They're not great, but they're going to be a deterrent. If you're next to a caravan and it hasn't got one and yours has got one, they're going to take that rather than have yours. That's kind of what they do, but they're not essentially that great. But they tick a box for the insurance. So if you want to say you've got a wheel clamp, you can pay £65 for an entry-level wheel clamp, and then that ticks a box. Then you start getting into the heavier duty ones that look more like the ones that you see in car parks, the great big triangle things. Now, the downside to them is they're heavy and they're cumbersome and they're hard to use. So the lightweight ones are great. You can just throw them in the box and chuck them on. With these ones, they're a little bit more for if you're going to be leaving the caravan in a storage field or at your driveway if you're away on holiday or something like that. So it's the more effective they are, the harder they are to use and the more expensive they are. So you'd be looking at paying £100, £120 for one of those more effective wheel clamps. Then we get into the Alco Secures. Now these are great, but if you tell the insurance that you've got one, you have to use it if you're going to be leaving that caravan for more than 2 hours. Now the downside to these Alco Secure wheel clamps is that you have to line the wheel up exactly with the thing that it screws into at the back on the chassis. So there's like a lozenge which looks like this. And that sits into the wheel precisely, and then there's a screw that goes through and locates into something in the back. So it locks the wheel to the axle. Now they're very effective, but they are really difficult to fit, especially if you've got a twin axle. If you have a twin axle, you have to line both wheels up, and both lozenges have to be exactly right. Now the only way to do that is to jack the caravan up, which is not the safest thing in the world to do. I always recommend these if you're going to be leaving the caravan in a storage area where you're not seeing the caravan for any length of time. It is the most effective way of making sure that your caravan is not going to move. To be honest, if they want it, I've seen them being cut off with oxyacetylene. If they want the caravan, they're going to take it. But again, it's if yours has got that and the next one next door hasn't, then that's likely to go rather than yours. But don't get me wrong, I have seen them on the floor in pieces and the van's not there. So they are not completely infallible, but then the people that are stealing it have to be there for an hour or so, and they have to make quite a bit of noise. So again, that is the deterrent that's going to hopefully put them off. So they're great. Using them on a daily basis when you're on the site. It's a bit easy if you've got a mover, because you can obviously move the caravan left and right and get it mill perfect, and it does have to be mill perfect. If you screw it in and it's got a slight bit of tension on the bolt, that can cause problems when you're trying to get it back out again. So I always recommend you've got to put it in hand tight, so the caravan has to be absolutely in the right position to use this type of wheel clamp. So they're great, but they're tricky to use. They're also expensive. I mean, you're looking at about £350. You can buy them on eBay fairly easily. Each individual wheel will have a different lozenge which fits that wheel, so you have to know which lozenge fits your caravan, and you can Google that easy enough. But there's always plenty on YouTube, and you'll pay around about £100. Make sure you've got the correct tool. There's a kind of a little tool that goes into the lock that you have to use, which is unique to that one. So make sure you've got the whole kit. You have the lozenge, you have the lock, and then you have the little tool that you need as well. So they are good, but I would say use them when you're going to be leaving the caravan for any length of time. I would probably not tell the insurance that you've got them if you don't want to have to use it every single time. You do get a little bit of money off your insurance when you do that, but then you've got the hassle of having to fit it every single time, and the cost of it in the first place. But like I said, eBay's quite a good thing for that. So that's the majority of the kit you're going to need. So just to recap, you've got an Aquaroll, 45 to 60 pounds. You've got a Wastemaster, again, 45 to 60 pounds. You've got a propane gas bottle. We recommend propane because of the cleanliness of it. That's £40 for a bottle, and I think 20, hang on 2 secs. £28 for a refill. Then you have a hitch lock, and for a decent one, you're paying around £100, £120 for that. Wheel clamps, you can have an entry level one for 65, and then everything in between up to £300, £350 for a Alco Secure. So that gives you an idea of the things you need. There's a few other little bits and bobs that will come with the caravan. So you'll have the pickup pipe for the water. You'll have a 25-metre hookup cable as well. If you have to buy one of those because it's been lost or the previous owner hasn't put it in, they're around about 40 or 50 pounds. There's a 10-metre one and a 25. I'd go for the 25 because a lot of sites will be a bit further than the 10 metres away from the hookup point. Other than that, then it's just whatever else you want to put in the caravan, all the paraphernalia that goes with that, your crockery and cutlery and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can spend what you like there. Some of the caravans will come with that kind of stuff, but you might want to replace it. So you're looking at another, £100, £150 for all that kind of stuff. So that gives you an idea of the bits that you're gonna need to get that caravan working. Again, if you buy from a private individual, you might get all that stuff with it. If you go to a dealer, you can ask for a startup kit, which essentially gives you your battery, Aquaroll, Wastemaster, and then if you push them a little bit, then probably a few bits of security as well. So that's it. Hopefully you'll now know what you need, and I'll see you in the next video.